5:17 local time, Strait of Hormuz. The first sound is barely there. Not a boom, not an alarm, just a thin metallic pulse inside the headset of the sonar operator aboard a U.S. naval vessel. It is the kind of sound that does not belong in routine traffic. He leans closer to the console, eyes narrowing at the display. One hand is already hovering over the talk switch. Con, sonar, possible transient, bearing 086. For half a second, no one in CIC says a word. Then another sound cuts through the water. Different bearing, shorter, sharper. Not merchant traffic, not random hull noise. Con, sonar, second transient, bearing 123. The room changes instantly. No shouting, no panic, just posture. Heads lift, screens pull every eye toward them. Pens stop moving. In the cold blue glow of CIC, every sailor understands the same thing at almost the same moment. Something is down there. On the bridge, the officer of the deck keeps his voice calm and level. Maintain course. Hold speed. CIC classified. Outside, the Strait of Hormuz still looks calm. Tankers move through the channel under the first light of morning. Civilian vessels appear on the horizon as scattered dark shapes. The sea is crowded, and with every passing minute, it grows brighter. From a distance, it almost looks peaceful. But 40 feet below the surface, the acoustic picture is beginning to break apart. The sonar operator listens again, filtering through prop wash, distant engines, and the low mechanical clutter of one of the busiest waterways on Earth. Then he hears it. A third contact. Con, sonar, third possible contact. Bearing 041. Bearing spread suggests multiple submerged sources. That gets everyone's attention. The tactical action officer steps closer to the main display. 3 bearings, 3 different sectors. Too clean to ignore, too coordinated to dismiss. 1 possible submerged contact could be noise. 3, arriving across a spread pattern is something else entirely. Bridge, CIC, recommend undersea threat posture. The answer comes back immediately. Set condition 3, quiet maneuvering detail. No alarm bell tears through the ship. No dramatic announcement follows. The transition is quieter than that. Doors seal. Watch teams tighten. Conversations shrink to only the words that matter. On the starboard bridge wing, a boatswain's mate scans the waterline through binoculars, even though he knows the most important thing right now is not visible at all. Below, the sonar picture becomes more concerning. 1 contact is moving slowly, carefully, almost too carefully. Another is shifting bearing, in small measured increments, as if it is not tracking where the ship is, but where the ship is going to be. The third remains faint, nearly buried inside the background noise. But it is there. The captain enters CIC without hurry. He does not ask for a broad explanation. He goes straight to the point. What do we have? The Tau answers with his eyes still on the screen. 3 probable submerged contacts. Classification unconfirmed. Bearings indicate a spread formation. Possible coordinated geometry. Any active pinging? No, Captain. Any release indicators? Negative. Not yet. Not yet. That phrase hangs in the room longer than anyone wants it to. The ship begins a slight course adjustment. Nothing dramatic from the outside. Just enough to make any predicted track less certain if someone below is building a solution. Engine settings shift. The wake changes shape behind the stern. To a civilian eye, nothing looks different. Inside the skin of the ship, everything does. Flight deck CIC, standby helo team for possible launch. The response is immediate. On deck, the helicopter detachment moves at once. Blades still folded, tie-down crews in position, no wasted motion. They do not know whether they will be needed in 2 minutes or 20. So they prepare as if it will be 2. In sonar, 1 contact sharpens for a moment. Con, sonar, contact 086 increasing cavitation, slight speed change. Can you classify? Not yet, but it is not commercial. The captain studies the display. 3 contacts, 1 naval vessel, narrow water, heavy traffic, limited room to maneuver. If this is a hostile pattern, the geometry is efficient. 1 submerged source ahead, 1 offset, 1 trailing wide enough to pressure the stern if the ship turns the wrong way. A destroyer can counter threats from the air, from the horizon, and from fast surface craft. But undersea danger is different. You do not see the moment first. You hear the decision behind it. Bridge, CIC, the TAO says. Recommend increasing speed. Approved. Come to 18 knots. The deck hum shifts almost instantly as the ship responds. Deep inside the hull, machinery changes tone, and the vessel begins to push harder through the narrow waters of the strait. Then sonar hears it, a hard mechanical snap. Brief, hollow, followed by a rushing acoustic bloom that seems to split the ocean open for a fraction of a second. The operator's head lifts from the display. Con, sonar, possible launch transient, bearing 091. Every set of eyes in CIC turns toward the sonar station. Say again. Possible launch transient, 091. Stand by, stand by. The next second feels much longer than it is. Then the operator says the words no crew at sea ever wants to hear. Con, sonar, fast mover in the water, bearing 091, inbound. On the bridge, the officer of the deck does not wait. Hard right rudder, all engines ahead flank, deploy Nixie. And at 5:17 local time in the Strait of Hormuz, the crisis becomes real. The order hits the ship all at once. Hard right rudder, all engines ahead flank, deploy Nixie. The U.S. naval vessel heels into the turn, steel groaning as the bow swings hard across the dark blue surface. A loose vibration runs through the deck plates. The horizon tilts. The ship is no longer simply transiting, it is reacting. In CIC, nobody looks up. Every eye stays locked on a screen. Every ear stays pressed to a headset. Every hand is already moving toward the next task before the last one is fully complete. Behind the stern, the towed acoustic decoy drops into the wake. It is not elegant. It is not dramatic. It is there for one reason only, to pull attention away from the ship. Con, sonar, fast mover bearing steady 091, speed high, range decreasing. The captain does not raise his voice. Match the turn. Keep opening the angle. The ship drives deeper into the maneuver. White water boils behind the stern. On the bridge wings, lookouts grip the rail as the hull leans and the sea slides sideways beneath them. Farther out, tankers continue their transit through the channel, unaware that one American vessel has just gone from routine passage to undersea emergency in a matter of seconds. Inside CIC, the picture is still incomplete. They know one inbound contact is moving fast. They know there are at least 3 probable submerged sources spread across different bearings. What they do not know is which one initiated the move, whether another is preparing to follow, or whether the incoming track is focused on the ship or the decoy. SLQ-25 streaming normally, one operator reports. Decoy active. That matters. The Nixie is now dragging behind the ship, creating a louder acoustic target than the vessel itself, trying to convince the incoming system that the ghost is real and the destroyer is not. Flight deck, CIC, launch the helo. On the aft deck, the MH-60R Seahawk is already coming alive. Rotors blur. Tie-down chains drop away. The aircraft commander does not need a speech. He has heard enough over the net to understand exactly what kind of launch this is. The helicopter lifts fast, nose dipping as it clears the deck, then banks out over the water. Back in sonar, the operator leans so close to the scope, he is almost touching it. Fast mover still inbound, bearing shifting slightly right. The TAO answers first, could be reacting to the turn. Then, after a beat, or it could be correcting for it. That is the problem with an underwater threat. It does not need much time. And in confined water, neither do the people trying to get clear of it. The ship continues to accelerate. The stern carves a wider arc through the sea. The engineering plant answers cleanly, pushing the hull harder through the turn without hesitation. To anyone watching from a distance, it might look like a sudden course change. Inside the ship, everyone knows better. This is not a maneuver anymore. This is a race against something they still cannot see. Somewhere below deck, sailors who cannot see the sea at all feel the angle of the ship beneath their boots. They do not need to see the horizon tilt. They already know one thing for certain. This is real. Con, sonar, contact 123, increasing noise. Cavitation rising. A second submerged contact is moving, not fleeing, repositioning. The captain hears it and understands immediately. The first contact has forced the ship into a defensive turn. Now another may be trying to use that new angle before the crew can recover and reset the picture. Mark that bearing. Watch for a second launch signature. Above the water, the MH-60R checks in. Airborne, proceeding to datum. The helicopter races low over the strait, its sensor operator already working the console. Ahead lies a patch of sea crowded with merchant traffic, heat shimmer, engine noise, and acoustic clutter. Somewhere inside it are at least 3 submerged contacts, 1 incoming threat, and a shrinking window to prevent the next move. Then sonar calls it. Fast mover shifting, bearing opening. Nobody celebrates. Not yet. The incoming track may be turning away, it may be searching again, or it may simply be locking onto a different piece of noise. Con, sonar, decoy effect possible, no contact with ship. A moment later, the wake behind the vessel erupts. A column of water punches upward off the starboard quarter, close enough to be seen from the bridge, far enough away to mean the ship is still there. The first inbound system has missed, pulled wide past the stern by speed, angle, and the acoustic decoy. But before relief can settle into the room, sonar stiffens again. Con, sonar, new transient, bearing 128, possible second fast mover. No one speaks over him. Repeat, possible second fast mover, bearing 128, track not yet firm. The captain turns back to the display. The geometry is changing exactly the way he feared. One submerged contact forced the maneuver. Another may now be using the new angle. Above them, the MH-60R reaches the first drop point. Aircrew commencing sonobuoy pattern. One by one, the buoys fall into the water. Small splashes spread across a widening arc. Their sensors sink beneath the surface and begin listening, feeding fragments of the underwater picture back to the aircraft and the ship. Bearings, noise, propeller rhythm, depth clues, not certainty, never certainty, but enough to hunt for the truth. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator gets the first clean return. Possible submerged contact. Bearing corresponds to 086 sector. Narrow band lines present. That is one. Then another buoy comes alive farther south. Second submerged contact possible. Bearing 123 sector. Intermittent. That makes two confirmed sectors. The third contact is still somewhere in the clutter. Still quiet. Still hidden. Still dangerous. Below, the ship steadies only briefly before shifting again. The captain and bridge team are careful not to become predictable. Straight lines are a risk. Predictable speed is a risk. And in confined water, even a few seconds can matter. Con, sonar. New fast mover now firm. Bearing 128. Inbound. This one is closer to the beam. Harder to pull wide. Harder to confuse. The Tau looks up at the captain. Second inbound track confirmed. Above the strait, the MH-60R banks hard into its pattern. Sonobuoys spreading behind it like breadcrumbs over a dark and dangerous stretch of sea. And inside CIC, as one submerged contact sharpens beneath the helicopter's sensors, a worse realization settles over the room. This was not a single move. This was a sequence. This was never a single hostile move. It was a layered trap, timed, coordinated, designed to force the ship one way, then punish it from another. And at least one regional submarine was still close enough to matter. 5:26 local time. The second fast mover is still in the water when the situation begins to change. Until now, the U.S. warship has been reacting, turning, accelerating, streaming decoys, buying survival by seconds. But now, for the first time since sonar called the first inbound track, the crew begins building something more valuable than distance. A picture. Above the Strait of Hormuz, the MH-60R Seahawk cuts low across the surface, banking hard over the first sonobuoy line. One by one, fresh buoys strike the water and begin sending acoustic fragments back to the aircraft and down to the ship. The sea beneath them is crowded with noise, merchant propellers, reflected wave energy, shallow water distortion, thermal layers, but inside that chaos, patterns are starting to separate. Romeo 1 CIC, we have second inbound run confirmed. Need source location. The reply comes back instantly. Romeo 1 copies. Working buoy field now. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator studies the returns with steady focus. He knows one clean narrowband line can change everything. Then he finds it. Faint at first, then firmer. A controlled screw signature. A slow depth change. Disciplined movement. Possible submerged contact 086 sector. Bearing drift minimal. That is likely the first source. But before the crew can fully lock onto it, another buoy comes alive farther south. Second contact possible. Bearing 123. Intermittent cavitation. That makes two. The third submerged contact still has not clearly revealed itself, and that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Back aboard the warship, the second inbound system forces another decision. Hard left 5 degrees. Keep the decoy streamed. The helm answers. This time, the ship does not swing wildly. There is too much traffic, too little room. In the Strait of Hormuz, a violent turn can save you from one danger and put you straight into another. The bridge team is now balancing undersea survival against surface navigation, threading a naval vessel through one of the world's narrowest strategic waterways while unseen contacts move beneath them. Con, sonar. Fast mover bearing 128 now shifting aft. Possible decoy attraction. Possible, not certain. Then at 5:27, a wall of water rises astern, close enough to shake the bridge windows with a dull, rolling thud. The second inbound system has missed. Not by much. No one exhales, because the sonar supervisor says the only thing that matters now. Both probable source contacts still on the board. The captain studies the tactical display. Now he can see the shape of it. One submerged contact initiated from the forward quarter. Another tried to catch the ship during the defensive turn. The third has remained almost perfectly quiet, staying outside the obvious search line, waiting for the Americans to commit too hard in one direction. The captain's voice stays low. They are not just pressing us. He looks at the screen. They are trying to box us in. The Tau nods once. Coordinated geometry, exactly what CIC feared in the first minutes of contact. Then the first submerged contact begins to move more aggressively. The helicopter's buoy field catches it slipping towards shallower water near a cluster of merchant routes, using civilian traffic noise to blur its signature. The move makes tactical sense. Shallow water, heavy clutter, tankers above, thermal layers below. A place where sound bends, echoes, and disappears. A place where a disciplined crew can turn confusion into cover. And somewhere inside that cover, the third contact is still silent. A small diesel-electric boat can become a ghost again if you give it time. The captain has no intention of giving it any. Romeo 1, prosecute contact 086. Keep pressure on, do not lose him. The MH-60R drops lower over the water. The crew is no longer just watching. They are tracking with purpose. A fresh sonobuoy pattern spreads ahead of the contact's escape route. Another buoy drops behind it. Inside the helicopter, the sensor operator begins building a cleaner line. Shaft rate, bearing change, speed. The contact is maneuvering harder now, and that helps the Americans more than it helps the boat below. A quiet submerged contact is difficult to read. A moving one leaves traces. CIC, Romeo 1. Contact 086 increasing turns. He knows we have him. That is the first real shift in momentum. Not victory, not control, but pressure. Below, the ship's sonar team keeps working the deeper problem. The second contact fades, then returns. The third still refuses to fully appear. Every few moments, there is a whisper of machinery, a trace of motion, then nothing again. It is like trying to follow a blade through dark water. At 5:30, the captain makes a measured decision. Single active pulse, narrow sector. The order moves through the ship. On the sonar display, the American vessel sends out one sharp, active ping. Not a long search, not a loud declaration across the entire strait. Just one controlled burst, aimed at the sector where the hidden contact is most likely waiting. The result is immediate. One contact spikes and turns hard. Another increases speed for several seconds, then tries to quiet down again. And the third finally reveals the smallest, most important clue of all. A brief depth change, a clean shift in bearing, much closer to the warship than anyone wanted. Con sonar, new close contact, possible third submerged contact. Bearing 057, closer, quiet, moving in. The captain's face does not change, but the room does. The first two contacts can be pressured from above. The third is now the main threat, still inside the engagement zone, still holding its move, still looking for the best angle. Over the water, the MH-60R crew spots a subtle disturbance below, a quick boil, a strange shear in the wake. No surface vessel nearby. The contact they have been pressing is diving and turning hard. Romeo 1 to CIC, contact 086 maneuvering aggressively. We can force him. Approved. Warning prosecution pattern. No speech, no drama, just action. The helicopter lays another buoy line, then positions for a possible response if the contact continues its run. It is enough to make the first submerged contact turn harder, revealing more noise, more instability, more urgency than before. But in CIC, attention has already shifted, because sonar has the update everyone feared. Con, sonar, contact 057 now closing, bearing rate increasing. The captain turns toward the display. The hidden contact is not pulling away. It is coming in. 5:34 local time. By now, the U.S. warship has survived 2 inbound runs, forced one submerged contact to maneuver under helicopter pressure, and exposed a second contact in the clutter south of the shipping lane. But the third one, the quiet one, the patient one, the one that never rushed its move, has become the center of the crisis. Con sonar. Contact 057, now classified probable submarine. Close aboard. The words land heavily in CIC. Close aboard means there is no comfortable distance, no long window to study. No luxury of letting the helicopter solve the problem alone. Somewhere off the warship's forward quarter, inside the confused acoustics of shallow water and commercial traffic, a submerged contact has slipped close enough to turn a tactical problem into a survival problem. On the bridge, the officer of the deck studies the surface plot. Tankers ahead, a merchant vessel broad on the starboard side. Another hull farther east, moving southbound through the lane. There is room to maneuver, but not much. Every degree of turn now carries consequences above the water as well as below it. The captain makes the calculation in silence. Come right 3 degrees, not more. It is a restrained order, and that is what makes it tense. A harder turn might help against the submerged contact. It might also push the warship towards civilian traffic or expose the wrong angle to the wrong sector. The crew does not get to choose between a perfect undersea maneuver and perfect navigation safety. In Hormuz, under hostile pressure, there is rarely a perfect option. Can you cover? The MH-60R is already banking back. Romeo 1 copies, repositioning. Below the surface, sonar listens through a storm of reflected noise. Merchant propellers hammer through the water. Thermal layers bend sound in strange, unreliable ways. The shallow bottom throws echoes back toward the hull. But the contact is there, quiet, disciplined, moving just enough to remain dangerous. A bearing steady. That matters more than speed. A steady bearing from a close submerged contact can mean only one thing. It is holding the right geometry. At 5:35, the captain stops treating the contact as a possibility. Go active. This time, the warship does not send a narrow test pulse. It sends a stronger, deliberate active emission into the water ahead. Above the surface, nothing changes. Below it, the sound rolls outward like a hammer strike, lighting up the underwater space around the contact for one brief instant. The response is immediate. Con, sonar, contact reacting, rapid depth change, bearing 056. He heard us. Good. Now the submerged contact knows it has been found. And once it is found, it has to choose quickly. Dive, turn, hold position, break away. Every option makes noise. Every option gives something away. Inside the Seahawk, the sensor operator catches the echo pattern and begins stacking buoy data against the ship's active return. Romeo 1 has a possible track, tightening. A fresh sonar buoy splashes into the water, then another. The helicopter crew lays a compact pattern across the contact's likely escape path. The goal is not spectacle, the goal is certainty. To shrink the unknowns until the contact has fewer and fewer safe choices left. Back aboard the warship, the engine pitch changes again as the captain orders another slight increase in speed. The deck vibrates underfoot. In CIC, no one looks away from the tactical display. Then sonar hears it, a hard metallic event, sharper than machinery, cleaner than cavitation, followed by a sudden fast acoustic bloom. The operator does not hesitate. Con, sonar, possible launch signature, bearing 057, close range. The bridge reacts instantly. Hard left rudder, deploy additional countermeasures. This inbound run is different from the first two. Closer, tighter. The timeline is brutally short. There is less room to pull it wide, less time for the decoy to draw it away, and almost no margin for hesitation. The warship leans into the turn. Outside, the sea erupts into wake. The stern digs in. The stream decoy lashes through the disturbed water behind the ship, throwing acoustic confusion into the incoming path. On deck, sailors grip steel and say nothing. Above them, the helicopter shifts from pressure to immediate response. Romeo 1, solution possible. Cleared if confirmed. The submerged contact has forced the moment. It came in close. It made its move. Now it has to survive what comes next. A lightweight response system drops from the MH-60R and strikes the water with a clean, violent splash. No drama, no speech, just procedure. Fast, practiced, precise. Once in the water, it begins its own search, and in seconds, the hunter becomes the hunted. Then everything happens at once. The warship's sonar picture spikes with overlapping noise. The decoy, the inbound track, the helicopter's system entering search, and the submerged contact below changing depth and speed with sudden urgency. For a few seconds, the ocean sounds like tearing metal and boiling machinery. Then a low underwater shock rolls through the hull. Not a direct hit. Not the catastrophic shudder of a vessel being struck. A heavy, blunt concussion passing through bulkheads, bridge glass, and the boots of every sailor standing watch. A column of water rises off the port quarter. Con, sonar, inbound track lost. Lost can mean several things. The decoy may have worked. The system may have run out of energy. It may have broken off early or been disrupted by the violent maneuver of the submarine that launched it. In that moment, none of the details matter. Only one fact does. The ship is still alive. Contact 057 increasing cavitation. Fast turn. Bearing opening. It is running. At nearly the same moment, the first submerged contact under helicopter pressure breaks farther south, giving up the coordinated pattern it helped create. The second contact sinks deeper into the clutter, no longer holding its previous line. The geometry that had threatened to trap the warship is beginning to fall apart. The captain watches the symbols separate on the display. For the first time that morning, the three hostile submerged contacts are no longer moving like a coordinated group. They are trying to escape alone. 5:46 local time. The first sign that the crisis is ending does not come from cheering. It comes from separation. On the tactical display inside CIC, the three contacts that had spent the last half hour converging, closing angles, and moving in sequence are no longer sharing the same geometry. One is heading south towards shallower water. One has dropped deeper into the acoustic clutter and is fading by design. The third, the one that came in closest and nearly changed everything, is opening, bearing fast. It is louder now, less disciplined, no longer pressing forward. It is leaving. Con, sonar, contact 057, increasing range. Bearing opening steadily. The captain does not answer right away. He watches the movement for several more seconds, waiting for the pattern to prove itself. This is how ships survive, not by trusting silence, by verifying it. Maintain prosecution. Do not assume disengagement. Above the Strait of Hormuz, the MH-60R remains in orbit, banking through another turn over the buoy field. Fuel is starting to matter, but the helicopter still has enough time to do what the ship needs most. Confirm that none of the submerged contacts are circling back for one final move. Romeo 1, CIC, status contacts. The reply is calm, almost clinical. Lead contact from 086 sector is moving away from Dal. Southern contact intermittent, deeper. No inbound vector apparent. Close contact from 057 is opening at speed. That is the first full sentence anyone has heard all morning that sounds like survival. Still, the warship does not relax. Helm orders remain deliberate. Speed stays elevated. Decoys remain streamed. Sonar keeps searching through the underwater clutter for any fast mover, any new transient, any sound that does not belong. Nothing comes. Outside, Hormuz begins to look almost ordinary again. Tankers hold their lanes. Heat shimmer rises from the water. The shipping channel remains crowded and indifferent. From a distance, no one on another vessel would understand what had just happened beneath that calm surface. 3 hostile submarines had tried to close a trap around an American warship. And less than 30 minutes later, the trap was breaking apart. Inside CIC, they understand exactly what just happened. One inbound run from the forward quarter. A second timed against the defensive turn. A third from close range, the most dangerous one of all. This was not random pressure, not a warning. It was a coordinated underwater trap built around geometry, timing, and narrow water. And it failed. Bridge, CIC, no current inbound tracks, no new launch signatures. The officer of the deck acknowledges in the same flat tone he has used all morning. There is no edge in his voice now, but there is no softness either. The captain turns back to the display. The 3 contacts are farther apart now. Whatever plan had existed beneath the surface is gone. They are no longer trying to finish the sequence. They are trying to preserve themselves. That matters. Because submerged contacts move in silence when they are in control. But when they pull away under pressure, they leave traces. Depth changes, rudder corrections, brief cavitation, small mistakes made by crews who know they are being followed and no longer own the geometry. The MH-60R had forced one contact to maneuver. The ship's active pulses had exposed another. The third had come in close, made its move, and lost its advantage the moment it had to escape the helicopter's response. Once the group lost synchronization, the pressure box disappeared with it. Recover helo when ready, the captain says. Keep the buoy field live as long as possible. On deck, the recovery crew prepares for the helicopter's return. No one moves like they have just won something. They move like sailors at the end of a dangerous evolution, focused, tired, and fully aware that tired is when people make mistakes. The Seahawk comes in low over the stern, steady despite the ship's speed, and settles onto the deck in a wash of rotor noise and spray. Chains go on, rotors spool down. The aircrew steps out carrying the real prize of the morning. Not drama, not footage for headlines, data, acoustic recordings, sonobuoy tracks, bearing shifts, timelines. Enough to reconstruct the entire hostile sequence in exacting detail. Below deck, inspection teams move through engineering spaces and after compartments, checking for shock effects from the near underwater blast. Shaft integrity, hull response, sensor status. Nothing serious. The ship is intact, still capable, still on mission. Only then does the tempo begin to drop. Not quickly, not visibly, just enough for a sailor to finally loosen his grip on the edge of a console. Enough for someone on the bridge to blink hard and realize he has not moved his feet in 10 minutes. Enough for the silence inside CIC to feel less like pressure and more like exhaustion held under control. At 5:58, sonar makes the call the entire ship has been waiting for. Con, sonar, no active hostile geometry. All 3 contacts outside immediate engagement zone. The captain nods once. No speech follows, no cinematic line. He simply gives the order that matters. Resume transit, stay sharp. And that is how it ends. Not with wreckage on the surface, not with a triumphant broadcast. 3 hostile submarines entered the encounter as one coordinated force. They timed their positions. They layered their moves. And for a few dangerous minutes, they came close to getting inside the ship's decision cycle. They had the geometry, they had the concealment, they had the initiative. But the US warship found a way out of the box, not through luck, through discipline, through sonar teams that never stopped listening, through decoys streamed in seconds, through a bridge crew forced to balance underwater danger against civilian traffic in one of the world's most crowded waterways. through a Seahawk crew that turned fragments of noise into a clear pursuit, and through a captain who never gave the submarines the one thing they needed most: a predictable target. By sunrise, the sea looks unchanged. The same tankers, the same heat shimmer, the same narrow channel cutting through one of the most sensitive stretches of water on Earth. But beneath the surface, 3 submarines are withdrawing into deeper uncertainty, and above them, 1 U.S. warship is still moving forward.